This is Mark Burns. If you're unfamiliar, he's a televangelist, and he's a member of something called the Seven Mountains Mandate, or Seven Mountains Dominionism. Now, we're going to get into what that is in a second, but let me just reintroduce you to him if you're unfamiliar. He had some things to say about the LGBT community recently that were deeply disturbing. This is during Pride Month, early June 2022, when he said this. Check it out.
The LGBT, transgender, grooming our children's minds is a national security threat because it is ultimately designed to destabilize the republic we call the United States of America. That's why when I'm elected, I don't want to just vote. I want to start holding people accountable for treason to the Constitution. I am going to push to reenact HUAC.
Okay, so let's just review what he said up to this point. He believes that being gay or being a member of the LGBT community in any way is tantamount to treason against the U.S. government. And he wants to set up or reset up HUAC, the House of Un-American Activities Committee. We'll get to that in a second. Keep listening.
HUAC is the House of Un-American Activities Committee. It was a real committee that was formulated back in the 50s, and it's a committee that we should reenact that starts holding these people accountable for treason. We need to hold people for treason, start having some public hearings, and start executing people who are found guilty for their treasonous acts against the Constitution of the United States of America, just like they did back in 1776.
So this guy just expressed an interest in charging and sentencing members of the LGBT community with treason and giving them the death penalty. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. He is not a nobody. That's what makes this even more disturbing. So what is HUAC? He talks about HUAC an awful lot. Back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, give or take, somewhere in there was a House committee in the House of Representatives in Congress called the House of Un-American Activities Committee, and it was responsible for making sure that people weren't doing something that was quote-unquote un-American, which primarily involved being communist. If you were a communist, or people thought that you were a communist or thought you might have communist leanings or sympathies, they would take you and charge you with a crime, or they would do all kinds of crazy messed up stuff, extrajudicial, evil stuff. This is actually a video that I have pulled up here of some prisoners of war in China. Now, there's a book called Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism. It was written by Robert J. Lifton. The reason he wrote the book was because of this video. The people in this video were, red, white, and blue running through the veins, die-hard Americans. They were American-born, American-bred, red, white, and blue loving people, right? Said the Pledge of Allegiance every morning in school, and then they go and fight in, I think, the Korean War. They get captured by the Chinese, and the Chinese brainwash them, and they come out on film, and then they say this.
My name is Harold Webb from West Palm Beach, Florida. My name is Aaron Wilson from Urania, Louisiana. This is a very happy moment for me, for now I am free from McCarthyism.
McCarthyism was part of what the House of Un-American Activities Committee was doing. That was McCarthyism. That was the Red Scare.
Friends, the only way to stop fascism in America is to do as I have done. Stand up and fight for our rights.
My name is Louis Griggs, and my home is at Jacksonville, Texas. I stayed behind to escape the Red Bait and McCarthy, and to assure that I'll never again have to fight in another unjust war as I did in Korea. Even if I had wanted repatriation, the fates of Dickinson and Batchelor would have stopped me.
My name is Richard Tennyson. I live in Alden, Minnesota. People who hate war and stand up for their beliefs are faced with McCarthy and his fascist gut-controlled House Un-American Activities Committee.
You catch that? House of Un-American Activities Committee?
I will return someday when I can speak for peace lawfully.
See, this is how the brainwashing worked. Generally, it just, in a nutshell. Like I said, he wrote a whole book about it, so it's very, very complicated, but I'll try to condense it down. They would take these people and put them in prison camps, and they would treat them really, really well. They wouldn't treat them like garbage, but they were only allowed certain things. They were only allowed 3 meals a day plus a bed, and they were allowed a blanket and a pillow and stuff like that, and they were generally not mistreated by other people, by the prison guards. They were not mistreated by the prison guards. Every now and then, they would be offered something small. They'd take them into a room and they'd say, I'll tell you what, write 2 essays. Write 1 essay about the good things about China and an essay about one single bad thing about America. It doesn't even have to be that bad. Just pick 1 good thing about us, 1 bad thing about them, and we'll give you 5 cigarettes. Or we'll give you an extra pillow. Or whatever. Little concessions, tiny concessions is all it took. And before you know it, they would find that their essay was posted up, on a billboard in the rec room or something. And everybody else saw their friend, their comrade in arms or whatever, saying good things about China, bad things about America. And it would crack, it would chisel away just a little bit more, a little at a time at that patriotism that they had for America, until finally, eventually, they fully broke and recognized that there were bad things about America and there were good things about China. And then they'd start pushing them even further in both of those directions. Now, this is obviously a product of brainwashing, what we just saw. Why would somebody who grew up in Louisiana, a prisoner of war taken by the Chinese, refuse to go back home? That's crazy, right? This is most definitely brainwashing, and it was not based in reality. However, the crack in the armor that the Chinese used, the thing that these people kept citing as the negative thing that they didn't like about America, that one negative thing, was McCarthyism, the House of Un-American Activities Committee, the fact that they would jail you for saying certain things very obviously against the Constitution, and they were doing it anyways. They used that as a seed to grow an entire orchard, to build out this whole brainwashing thing. That's what the Chinese did. The House of Un-American Activities Committee, what Pastor Mark Burns was talking about here, was a blight on American society. It was an evil perpetrated by the American government. And the fact that he wants to bring it back, it was true fascism. Full-blown, real fascism that was happening. And the fact that he wants to bring it back should disqualify him as a political candidate. Oh yeah, he's a political candidate. Did I forget to mention? He did lose his election recently, his primary, so there's that. But either way, he should be barred from being a politician, period, with some of the things that he's said already. Like, he wants to execute gay people, for example. He wants to bring back fascism. He likes fascism. It's absolutely insane. It's like these people don't have any idea of what happened in our past. They want to bring it back. It's nuts. Before we continue, I just wanted to mention something. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, you can support me in a few ways. First, there's Patreon. That's probably the best way. But if you want to get something back for your support, you can check out my Teespring. Or you can check out my Telltale Unfiltered channel. I go through long-form, unhinged sermons from all kinds of people, from Hank Kunneman to Greg Locke to Jehovah's Witnesses. So give it a look. Links are in the description. Okay, now back to the video. Here's another clip from Mark Burns. This is mid-November 2021. I just really want to form out this idea of who this guy is so you have a full-fleshed idea of it. Listen to what he says here.
I'm excited about the growing movement, especially here in the 4th District of South Carolina, of people who are identifying themselves as just Christian conservatives, right? We got to take it back to the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I believe the people here in the 4th District of South Carolina are getting that.
Yeah, see, he was running in the 4th District of South Carolina as a Republican. He did lose his primary, but either way, it's just disturbing that he's running at all.
Are getting that. It's not just about being Republicans. It's about being a conservative Christian who believes this is a Christian nation, and any policy that is contrary to the word of God, we need to remove it from mainstream America and make it illegal.
Remove any policy, any law that is in conflict with the Bible. Remove it from existence and make it illegal, I guess. Wow. Well, I have to tell you, the first thing you're going to have to remove is the First Amendment, because the First Amendment contradicts the First Commandment. The First Amendment says you have freedom of speech, and government and religion shall remain separate. Government will be completely neutral. And the First Commandment says the people shall have no other gods before Yahweh, basically. So which is it? Which one are we going to go with? Mark Burns wants to erase the Constitution and replace it with the Bible. Now, I know what you're saying. Owen, that's a little bit of a leap from what he just said, isn't it? I'm not basing what I just said on his position that he just espoused here. I'm basing that on what he has specifically said. There's something called Seven Mountains Dominionism, okay? Listen to what he has to say about Seven Mountains Dominionism, and then I'll explain what it is.
We're taking over all 7 mountains for the body of Jesus Christ. That includes information technology. Right. That includes, as what you all are doing here at KCM, television, right? Because, all we got is CNN and MSNBC and...
So what he said there may not fully make sense unless you have the context. The Seven Mountains Mandate, or Seven Mountains Dominionism, is the position that these people want to replace the Constitution with the Ten Commandments. And the plan to make that happen is to get their people at the top of 7 different areas of life, what they call the Seven Mountains. They want to get their pastors at the top of every single church in America. Send their pastors in, send their people in, work up through the ranks until you reach the top, until you can take the churches over. Go into the Methodist, the Methodist conference or whatever, and run in their elections until you take over their board. So take over religion, take over family, take over media, take over the economy, take over the military, that's 5. Take over the educational system through school boards and things like that, and then take over art. So get people at the top of those 7 areas of society in the United States. Get your Christians at the top so that they can dictate how they're going to operate, so that they can turn them into Christian institutions, basically. That's the Seven Mountains Mandate. And by doing so, you won't have to worry about converting everybody in the country. You can simply control everybody in the country and force them to be Christians. You don't need to convert them. You can force them. That's the Seven Mountains Mandate. And dominionism more generally is replacing the Constitution with the Bible. That's what Mark Burns is all about. That's what he talks about. That's what he was just referring to at the beginning of this a second ago.
We're taking over all 7 mountains for the body of Jesus.
See, that's what this is all about. And this guy is not a nobody either. I think he's famously known as the Trump pastor or something like that. Listen to this story he tells about meeting Kenneth Copeland, mid-September 2022. By the way, these are brand new clips that I'm playing you right now. Just came out the other day.
Back in 2015, the guy was thinking about running for president. And so because of my TV network, he wanted to connect to the black community, right? So I was invited along with some other great generals of the gospel. Now, I did not know, Brother Gene, who was going to be there. As soon as I walked through the golden doors, at the bottom of the elevator, waiting to go up,
I think this is at Trump Tower,
was Brother Kenneth Copeland.
Come on.
See, this kind of parasocial obsession that he's got here for Kenneth Copeland is not healthy. Not healthy.
And when I saw Brother Copeland, I immediately forgot that I was in Trump Towers.
This whole appearance that he's doing here is on the Victory Network, which is owned by Kenneth Copeland. Victory-a-thon, I guess.
And I got to Brother Copeland, and I said, Brother Copeland, you have blessed and touched my life, and like you've done millions, and I may never be this close to you again. And I had a Now Television Network pen. Right. And I took it off, and I said, would you pray and anoint my network that God would bless it? Because at the time, we were just starting.
And when you were going through some financial issues, why?
Because...
Okay, now here comes the persecution complex. You ready to... I mean, he's already talked about how much he loves Kenneth Copeland and how close to God he's brought him. Now he's about to lay on the persecution. He's so persecuted for being a Christian in America who loves God and loves Donald Trump.
Because Time Magazine named me Donald Trump's top pastor.
I don't remember that. Maybe, but there were other pastors who I feel it would be much more appropriate to call Donald Trump's pastors, top pastors, like Kenneth Copeland. Hell, why not Copeland? He was up there. He was a Trump supporter, or is currently still a Trump supporter.
We literally lost about 40 to 45% of our TV network contracts canceled within a matter of two weeks.
Wow. Oh, so persecuted, so mistreated, this poor guy.
He said, I'm going to pray over your network. And out of nowhere, the worst he said, I was waiting for him to say, make this man a millionaire or something. You know, he just blessed my life. No, he said.
You know, the saddest part about what he just said is that I think he believes that Copeland really could say that and make it happen. Make this guy a millionaire. And he thinks that it would actually work that way.
No, he said, whatever gates of hell that comes against your television network, he said it will not prevail.
Amen.
Dr. David Jeremiah prayed that God would raise up a black leader. This is what he said, that God would raise up a black leader to stand beside Donald J. Trump, and that God would lead this man of God to victory. And little did I know, God appointed me to be that person, and I've been fighting that fight ever since. But Brother Copeland prayed a prayer that changed my life, made me a multi-millionaire. Y'all not talking back to me.
Yeah, come on.
What was it that Jesus said about wealth and stuff? Isn't he supposed to give his wealth away to the poor and follow Jesus? This guy is standing here bragging about being a multimillionaire. The hypocrisy doesn't even register in his brain, doesn't even connect with this guy.
I can tell right now there are many people in here that are jealous of me right now. You got the spirit of jealousy. You got to remove that thing now.
Yeah.
This is so absurd. Just top to bottom, this whole thing is absurd. Sad part is, people take him seriously. People believe him. This is on the Victory Network. He's not a nobody. Apparently, Time Magazine named him Trump's top pastor. He's worked with Kenneth Copeland, not just met him, not just that once. That was just in 2015, I think, or 2016. He's worked with Copeland extensively since then. And this guy is slipping Seven Mountains dominionism into everything. I'm really honestly glad that he lost his election to the South Carolina's 4th district, but I gotta tell you, man, this guy is still eroding the institutions, our societal institutions, day by day to the best of his ability, until we finally come to the point where it's possible to replace the Constitution with the Bible. That is his end goal, not just his, but pretty much everybody on the Victory Network, Kenneth Copeland included, and they will not stop until they succeed. If you disagree with anything I've said, let me know in the comments or on Twitter at TelltaleAtheist. Stampede122, McCarthyism, anyone? Absolutely. Absolutely. This guy wants McCarthyism back. He flat out said it. He wants the House of Un-American Activities Committee back, which is McCarthyism. That's what that is. That was the whole thing. It's insane. It's a blight on American society, on American history, and he wants it back. That's like a German person saying, I liked the days of Nazi Germany and I want that back. What is wrong with you? That was an evil, depraved, disgusting piece of history. Who in their right mind would ever stand for something like that? Mark Burns wants that back. Mark Burns wants McCarthyism back. Of course, don't get me wrong, McCarthyism was not as bad as 1930s or 40s Germany, but it was fascism. They were both fascism, and they were both evil at their core. They were both deeply harmful and destructive to society. One was very obviously more destructive, but it's the same ideology, and it's absolutely evil.